Media Room, take one. Hi there, I'll be giving you a tour and a tutorial on how to use our...
As you could probably tell, the focus of episode 4 of AI Webster will be on Radiohaig. And I included Hannah Park and her introduction there as something that's emblematic I'll come back to later on. I want to go over, oh, and by the way, our sponsor today is Bubbly, specifically the Blackberry Bubbly. Oh, it's refreshing and delicious. I want to say that this video may be a little self-congratulatory, and if you find that vomit-inducing, let the algorithm guide you in another direction right now. Bail early. If you stick around long enough, I'll show you some bonus footage that you may have seen on Radiohaig's Instagram site. But anyway, I want to focus on the birth of Radiohaig, its pre-pandemic existence, how the pandemic transitioned it into something different, and then its post-pandemic history. So I have to confess, being the staff sponsor for Radiohaig was one of my greatest joys as a teacher at Earl Haig, but that's because I did something that perhaps you're not supposed to do. I hand-selected the students. I made sure I had kids who were smart, kids who were articulate, and most importantly, kids who were dependable. I didn't always get that right. Sometimes they weren't as dependable as I'd like, and those kids got fired, but they were replaced by wonderful ones. So if you are one of the 50 or so students who were involved in Radiohaig's time, it's a high compliment, to be sure. So before the pandemic, about 10 or 12 years ago, the Radiohaig wasn't Radiohaig, it was Haig Radio. And it was a bit of an ungainly mess, and they sent me in to be the staff supervisor, and I had to tighten a few things up. The kids who were in there were nice, but they had gotten used to a culture that wasn't especially organized. So as I organized it and established some rules and some tighter conventions, some of them didn't want to be part of it. And I learned that the most important thing is to surround yourself with nice kids. When we teach 30 kids, you teach the kids you get. But when you're involved in an extracurricular activity and the stakes are high, you may as well pick great kids. So that's what I did. So initially, I needed to get rid of the paper announcements that were being thrown under the door. I needed to organize it and curate the announcements. So I needed an email address. Haig Radio was taken, so I went with Radiohaig, which sounds a lot like Radiohead, one of my favorite bands. I was lucky enough, pre-pandemic, we had a non-semestered school, so I was able to have enriched grade 11 both day 1 and day 2. So I would use excellent kids there to do the announcements. And after I knew the kids better, I'd select the best of the best to be producers. The producers would do the land acknowledgement, Oh Canada, and they'd run the radio booth for the radio shows Open Quarter and Poetry and Voice Meets Music. So a lot of fun and a lot of responsibility. Probably in January and February of 2020 period, I had the best group of live singers. I had a choral group with Nitya, Leon, Kaya, Eling, and Eugene. And every Friday they would sing live the national anthem. Things were swimming along about as good as they could be, and then the pandemic hit, of course. That's when the birth of Radiohaig's Instagram site happened, because that was a vehicle for us to throw out some announcements that couldn't be heard because we weren't even in school. A couple of interesting things happened too. I needed Vicky Lee. I taught 2 wonderful Vicky Lees in grade 10 years ago. One of them was a great announcer, so I had her put together a video of the rules and conventions for submitting an announcement. I'll clip that onto the end in case someone hasn't seen. And then I had Eugene Zhang, was one of the producers. And during 2021, and I guess 2022, the height of the pandemic, no, I guess the end of 2020 and 21, he was in there on when he did the announcements, he would sing the anthem live. And I don't know if you remember this, but the TDSB was so fussy about not being able to participate in anything that involved a non-masked vocalization. He was the only student in the school, when he was in that booth, who was allowed to sing, as ridiculous as that sounds. But he sang the anthem live by himself in front of however many students were in there during the quadmesters. So a special thanks to him. Anyway, after the pandemic hit, we went back. We realized that things were a little tighter, and we didn't have the announcements at the end of the day, so the announcements had to be done just as school started. We had to keep them more concise. So I really was very proud of the number of excellent students I showcased, 3 of whom are still there, I believe. Naila, Willow, and Malou should still be there, unless they did something interesting to get out of the job. But what I would like to do is showcase Serena's last live singing of the anthem as a bit of an exit to this video. So if you're still hanging around and you're willing to hang around a little bit more, wait for that. Thank you.
Good morning, Radiohaig. It is Friday, June 7th, a day 1 on your timetable. Please stand for our land acknowledgement and remain standing for our national anthem. We acknowledge Earl Haig Secondary School is built upon the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Good morning, staff and students. My name is Vicky Lee, announcer and producer at Radiohaig, and I'd like to help you understand the guidelines for the proper submission of daily announcements. Announcements must be emailed to radiohaig@gmail.com by 9 p.m., the night before the morning they are to be broadcast. All announcements must be related to Earl Haig teams, clubs, and events. They must come through or be CC'd to a TDSB staff sponsor. They will be repeated a maximum of 3 times. An ongoing glut of announcements is unhelpful. Announcements should not exceed 150 characters, including spaces. If you have more to say, provide a readable link or allude to a helpful website with more information. Only Radiohaig staff can read the announcements. Radiohaig reserves the right to edit or delete wordy, redundant, or poorly constructed messages. Please thoroughly proofread your message to make sure you are conveying your intended meaning. If you have any further questions, visit Mr. Webster in room 213. Carpe diem!